The victims before the fire took over their home. There were no working smoke detectors in that house. An 8-year-old boy who caught fire during the event escaped and is in the hospital in critical condition. There are some steps you can take to ensure this same tragedy doesn't happen to you or your family or anyone you love.
Hey, joining us this morning, thank you for coming in, David Karaz, the Executive Director of the New Jersey Fire Sprinkler Advisory Board. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
These kinds of stories just make us want to shake our neighbors and anybody we care about and just say, you know what, you've got to check your smoke detectors. What message do you want to get out there this morning?
Absolutely, you're 100% correct. Whenever you change the calendars, you go from the clocks forward to clocks backwards. You want to check your batteries and your smoke detector. First and foremost, that really is the paramount thing to have working smoke detectors. They are the first line of defense for reactive fire protection.
And any firefighter will tell you that. As a part of an interview we did yesterday with the fire chief in South Plainfield, because he had something interesting to say that relates to what you do for a living, and I want to get your take on it, so listen to this.
Sure. To move out as fast, all I can say is smoke detectors will save lives. In the business that I've seen, they have saved lives. We are pushing hardly to get houses sprinkled in the state of New Jersey. Sprinklers installed, yes. We've been fighting this for years.
Yeah, and I'm sure you agree with that in the business that you're in. Would sprinklers, if this house had a sprinkler system, how much would that have helped?
I can tell you with about 100% certainty that it absolutely would have saved lives and property. To date, that there's never been a multiple loss of life in a structure that has been fully suppressed and well maintained. They absolutely save lives. This is the way to go in the future.
So sprinkler systems hook it where they go across your ceiling and basically create a situation where you can spray water when a fire starts, is that correct?
Yeah, that's a very simple way to put it. You're absolutely right. They could be in your ceilings, they could be in your walls, they could be recessed like so here. You can see it, you can't even see the head, it comes out. You have a head here that's straight in, you can see the heat element. And what will happen is the only thing that's going to activate a fire sprinkler system is heat and heat alone. And specifically in residential occupancies, you're going to look at roughly about 165 degrees of heat.
So doing that kind of, I mean, this is an older house. How much would it cost to retrofit it with all of those pipes and a sprinkler system? Isn't that expensive?
If you're looking to retrofit, it's between about $5 and $7 a square foot.
So a house like that, that's not going to mean much to people?
No, it's not. And then also, but a new construction is the real caveat going forward, where it's only about $2 a square foot. So really what the fire chief was speaking about and going forward in the fight we've been fighting is we're trying to avoid having to do this again in the future, to revisit these tragedies, because this is not good for anybody. I mean, nobody wins in this, and going forward, we want to reduce the number of fire deaths in New Jersey.
Obviously, the expense there to retrofit all of these older buildings. This particular building we're talking about, 150 years old. It's an old farmhouse. It had particularly good construction, but it also allowed this fire to get up, into the sides of the houses, very quickly. You mentioned something earlier that I found very interesting. There's a federal guideline about sprinkler systems, but states can opt out. Do you know if the states in the tri-state area have opted out of it?
Absolutely, I do. According to the International Code Council, going forward in 2012, in the code that you build national houses to, it does require fire sprinklers. And each state does have their own ability to get in or out accordingly. New Jersey has decided not to go forward with this. New York has not even looked into this yet. There's still a couple code cycles behind. I can tell you, in lieu of regulation in New Jersey, legislation has been introduced by Assemblyman Wisniewski, who's pushing very hard to get this passed in the state of New Jersey.
In the meantime, all sprinklers aside, because that seems to be a bigger issue and much more expensive, you have a couple of other things that you can show us. Very simple to save lives. These smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, a fire extinguisher on every level of the house. I realized after this fire, I started thinking about my own home. I only had one fire extinguisher in my home.
You're absolutely right, and I'll give you a little heads up on some other things you have. Obviously, your smoke detector. You want to make sure the batteries are working. You want to have this where you sleep and where you eat primarily. Two most important areas. Most of the fires happen at nighttime while we are sleeping, as you saw in the case here in this one. Your carbon monoxide detector, very important. What happens here is you can't smell, you can't sense carbon monoxide, you need to have that. And your fire extinguisher, which is kind of a, you know, any trained fireman will tell you it's a dual-edged sword kind of, because it does make people believe that they can be their own personal firefighters, which causes a risk in itself, because unless you're trained and know how to use it and taking some time out to actually use it, what happens in a fire situation, people panic, they don't know where to pull, they don't know exactly how to operate it. So it goes back and forth. The safest thing is if you see fire, smoke, anything along those lines, run out, get out, stay out, call 911, and have the professionals handle it.
David Krause, thank you so much for making time for us today.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Always a good reminder, and have a plan.